Hey, Kirsten. So it's New
Hi.
Year's Eve. What are you going to do later?
Well, this year is kind of a different year for celebrations,
Mhm,
so I probably am gonna see some friends,
mhm.
but I want to keep it to small amount of people, so probably just one or two friends, and we'll maybe have some drinks at home or watch something on TV. Very casual, small group of people. So
Mhm.
um, that's what I'm gonna do. How about
Yeah.
you? What are you
Well,
gonna do?
I'm going to stay home. It's actually very quiet, almost scary quiet outside.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm going to stay home. And I think there are fireworks at midnight, which I think I will be able to see
Yeah.
from my bedroom window.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't have any plans to go out, not this year.
And so maybe you guys can guess what the topic of today is going to be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is something that I know your students, I'm sure they ask you about it. Mine do, is the
Yes.
difference between when you would say, I'm going to do something, and when you would say, I will do something.
Right. And this is something that even native speakers, we never learned this rule. And a lot of times we really don't have a difference when we're talking. It doesn't sound weird to us if you use one or the other.
Mhm.
But if you want to sound crisp and precise in English, you can try to remember these rules. And if you're going to take a test like IELTS or TOEFL, a question like this might come up. So learning the rules
Yes,
might be
yes.
helpful.
And I know it definitely is on the Cambridge first certificate test for those of you that plan to take that one. So
The
okay.
test, yeah. Or the T-cell test, right?
No, this is just a Cambridge English. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so yeah,
Uh,
all right. So let's talk about um, the differences, and I think we'll start with one that is fairly straightforward. When you say I am going to do something, it means you have a plan, right?
right.
Um, for example, if I tell you that I am going to a baseball game tomorrow, I think in your mind you'd say, yeah, well, John has the tickets, and there's no doubt, there's no doubt about John's plans for tomorrow.
And then on the other hand, let's say I have an extra ticket
Hmm.
and I say, "Do you want to come with me?" Then you can say, "Oh, I'll go with you." So that's, not necessarily a plan. You decided right now, like you didn't know about the baseball game maybe, and
Hmm.
I'm inviting you, so you decide right now, "Okay, I'll go."
Right.
Yeah, I'll
And
go.
when I say I will go or I'll go, yeah, that's a promise I'm making, right?
Right.
Will,
Right.
if you think of will and it's a promise, that's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can think of it as a promise, or like a helpful gesture. And then
Hmm.
also that decision that you made is not a decision that you made way back. It's not a plan that you made before, but now you're deciding, okay, I'll do
Precisely.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's really, I think,
The
a good,
basic.
a good outline for people as to when you use each one. So.
Right. So another example that I always give is, let's say we're sitting in the classroom and I drop my pen.
Hmm.
And then maybe John is sitting next to me and he says, "Okay, I'll pick that up for you. I'll
Hmm.
pick that up for you." So this is not a plan he made before, right? He didn't know that I was going to drop my pencil. So he says, "I'll pick that up for you." It's like a promise or a kind gesture. And then he
Hmm.
just decided right now, like I will do that. So
Yeah. I could have decided not to pick up the pen. I could have let you pick up the pen, but I said, no, I will do that. So it's
Yeah.
an offer, it's a gesture.
Yeah, there's another one. Like offer or promise, I guess we can say.
Yeah, yeah. And another example that I like to give for I will is, if you tell me, hey John, can you bring some beer to the party?
Right.
And I then say to you, sure, I will go to the supermarket. I'll go to the supermarket. Well, I promised you I'll bring beer, but I didn't say when I would go to the supermarket, which supermarket, whether I will walk, take my bicycle, send someone else. Yeah, I mean, none of that. So
it's not like you had planned, oh, like I'm going to go to Ralph's. I'm going to go into this aisle. I'm going to get wine. I'm going to get Coors Light beer. Yeah, you didn't have that plan, but you're like, okay, I'll go do that.
Yeah, yeah. So.
And then the other one I think that is the most subtle, which Americans or anybody who's a native speaker probably never thinks about the difference, and sometimes sometimes switches them up all the time, is when you're making a prediction, like about the weather, for example. Right. So what would you normally say, John, if you were trying to figure out what's happening with the weather?
You see, here's the thing. I would probably look out of the window and say, I think it's going to rain.
Right. Okay. And so what leads you to say going to instead of will in this situation?
Habit. I mean, there's no, I don't choose it for a reason.
Right. And I think that most native speakers aren't really thinking about that. Sometimes we might say, oh, I think it will rain. And it doesn't sound weird if you say going to or will in that situation. It doesn't sound strange to us to choose one or the other. But the technical rule is if you have evidence, if you're sure, almost 100% sure, you'll use going to in that situation. So maybe you saw the clouds, they look like they're dark, and so it's gonna rain. But will is you have less of a sureness. You're not as sure. So you might just say, I think it will rain today, but you don't really have any evidence. You just kind of think so.
Yes, and that's why the weather is actually a perfect example of this use and even misuse, because okay, we look out the window and we predict the weather, but we really don't know, and weather changes at the last minute. But for example, if you told me, okay, my friend is going to come over at 5 o'clock, okay, I hear a plan, I hear a friend is coming, and I say, okay, this is someone who's usually on time, right?
Right.
If you said, oh, my friend will come at 5 o'clock, using the rule, we'd say, well, okay, will the friend
actually come at
5 o'clock? And that's where, again, speaking to your earlier point, well, native speakers use them both ways. We almost ignore the rule completely. But yeah, the rule is there. And again, this can be very important if you are ever going to take one of those tests, because it's an easy way for them to cost you a few points.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to add on a little bit to that. This is kind of going a little deeper. You might have heard that if we're using will in the past, we say would. And if you're using be going to in the past, you say was going to. So let's say with that friend, she said she would come. She said she would come, or she said she was going to come at 5. So that's an example of how we would use that idea in the past. And so it's the same thing. Like she said she was going to, then she has a plan to come here at 5. But just she said she would come to the party. There's no time, but she said she would come. So that's going a little deeper. But there's just another way. Maybe you've heard that will changes to would. So,
Exactly. And also, I mean, there was something in the way that we both said the expression going to, and a lot of native speakers, this is one of those situations where we push the two words together and create this contraction that's not really a contraction. And I think you asked me right at the beginning, what are you gonna do tonight?
right.
But when you hear the expression gonna, it's basically a way people will say, I'm going to. Of course, never actually write that, unless you're sending a text to your friend, but
Yeah, you don't
never,
want
never
gonna.
write your boss or, well, your mother, in my case, or certainly not your teacher, saying I'm gonna, right?
Don't write gonna in an essay to your teacher. She's
Yes.
gonna, he is gonna be annoyed if you do that.
Yes. And it's something interesting is that, and boy, I mean, this could be a whole other topic, couldn't it, Kirsten? I mean, where we use certain ways of speaking that we really shouldn't, but we all do. And you have to make that division between who I'm speaking to and when and where as to how you use these things.
So would you say, John, if you're generally speaking, do you use going to or gonna in any situation?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I speak. I mean, today I've been very careful. I think almost every time I could have, I said going to.
You did. And I think I said gonna just out of my way of speaking. So that's why I asked that question. I was wondering what you usually say.
And I think I had to stop myself a few times from saying gonna. And,
Yeah.
And breathe in and say going to.
So I think that it depends on the situation.
Absolutely.
I feel sort of, when I say going to, I feel sort of robotic or like a robot, or that's just how I feel, but it might sound more natural coming from somebody else's mouth than mine. Just I feel a little bit weird saying going to rather than gonna.
Right, and one of the reasons I think we make those combination contraction of words is that it does sound more natural. It does make the language flow, and I mean that's what we want is for the language to sound natural and for the language to flow. But it's important to know, I think, where these things come from and why you need to be careful sometimes.
Definitely. So that's basically it.
There you have it.
I hope this made it a little more clear for you guys. And again, like I said, this is one of those rules that is not going to sound weird if you use one or the other to a native speaker. We're not going to think, oh, that person is not fluent in English if you say one or the other. But if you want to be perfect, if you want to know it for a test, these are some good rules to remember.
Right. Okay. Well, okay, Kirsten. Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And we'll talk in 2021.